Warning: this video contains violence and death. Descriptions may be triggering to some viewers. Discretion is recommended. When I tell you this story, you won't believe me. I know you won't, but it happened. My name is Cass Evergreen. I live in a small town called Somerville, or as kids call it, Horrorville. We have managed to scare away all of the people with our terrifying history. I was part of that history. It happened 4 years ago, summer of 2016. Back then, I had this best friend. His name was Sal for short. I won't give away his last name for his parents. We were best friends for 4 years before the incident. He was my only friend. The one person in my life at the time that I trusted. And if I cared more for him, maybe he would be the one telling this story. Sal moved into town when we were still in middle school. We had become friends because Sal had been bullied for being ginger, and I decided to step in. We were unlikely friends, but we were closer than brothers. The school year had just ended, and we were both in need of a break. So we decided to go on a camping trip in the woods behind my neighborhood. I don't go into those woods anymore. We went pretty far off the trail, which is my mistake. So I was way more in the nature than I was. So he was extremely excited to be outside of the house for once. By the time the sun was setting, we had settled down and deep into the forest and started a fire. How about we tell ghost stories? Sal suggested. No way, you'd get way too scared, I told him. Come on, I can take it. Come on, it'll be fun. I know a lot of scary stories, so don't say I didn't warn you. I'm going to tell you one of the stories that I told Sal. This was a story that was true and confused everyone. What happened to her? Is she dead? No one knows for sure. Back when I was a kid, long before you were here, a little girl went missing in the woods. These woods. After many days of searching, the police found an overturned van with 2 dead bodies of men inside. They speculated these were the men who had took the girl, but the girl was never found. What happened to her? Is she dead? No one knows for sure. The police announced her dead when she couldn't find her. But it's what the police never told everyone that sent rumors spreading around the town like wildfire. I actually heard from one of the kids who had their parents talking about it. Who heard the parents talk about it. Tell me, what happened? Sal pressed. The rumors were about the state of the men. Their bodies. They are mutilated. Like they had been attacked by something big. But what confused the police most of all was what was missing. Sal was on the edge of his seat. His interest clearly piqued. During the autopsy, they noticed that every organ was present except for one. Their hearts! I yelled, poking his chest for a dramatic effect. He yelped and fell out of his chair and laughed. You were so easily scared, I said, helping him up. Yeah, but the story, is it true? Well, it is true that the girl went missing, and those were the rumors I heard. But I doubt it's real. It's just another spooky story everyone tells once in a while. I'm honestly surprised this is the first you're hearing of it. Well, you know me. I don't really pay attention to anything very much. You always have your nose stuck in a book, don't you? You're such a nerd, I laughed. Shut up, Sal laughed. And we laughed. How stupid and careless we were. We were so loud, having no idea what was out there that could have hurt us. Later on that night, we went to sleep in our tent. Everything was fine until Sal shook me awake. What? What? I asked, sitting up. Shh! I hear something, he whispered. Come on, Sal, it's probably a deer or something. You're overreacting. Just because of the story that I told you that you wanted to hear. No, Kaz, I'm serious. There's something outside the tent. A large growl echoed off the trees outside. Sal grabbed my arm and bit his lip to stop himself from screaming. He looked at me and I realized how genuinely terrified he was. I scanned the walls of the tent and saw a large shadow. It's okay. Just stay quiet and we'll be fine. Don't worry. I trailed off as another growl sounded through the tent walls. But it wasn't a bear. It didn't sound like a bear. It didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard before. Another shadow came into view. It was small and gangly, but looked like it had a long mane and long fur. The bear and the creature started to fight. They disappeared from view, probably going deeper into the forest. The sounds of fighting and terrifying noises faded off into the forest until there was nothing we could hear at all. What the hell was that? Sal asked, his voice quivering with every word. I stood up and grabbed the flashlight. I headed out of the tent and pointed the flashlight at a trail of blood and broken branches. The path led deeper into the woods. I started to follow, but Sal grabbed my arm. What are you doing? He whispered. Going to see what that thing was. Are you crazy? You could get killed. Can we just come home, please? He said with panic in his voice. No, I'm not. I'm going to see what it is, with or without you. Go home if you want, but I'm not. I pulled my arm from his grasp and started walking down the path. God, I wish I had just listened to him for just this one time. A few seconds later, after some contemplating, I suppose, Sal caught up with me and clung to my arm again. Why hadn't he just taken my advice? He should have left, and so should I. But no. We kept following the trail. Then we heard a large roar coming from deep into the forest. A roar that echoed off the trees, making us both stop dead in our tracks. Sal's grip on my arm tightened, and he grew closer. Can we go home now? He whispered. No, come on, I'm not leaving until I see this, I said, continuing. Should have left right then and there, but of course, I would never have expected what I saw that night. A while later, I started to hear noises again, so I turned off my flashlight and slowed my walk. I stopped when the noises sounded close and waited for my eyes to focus. The fumes of death filled my nose. Something told me the bear didn't win the fight. After a few seconds, I realized what the sounds were. They sounded like eating. Like the sounds of someone ripping off and eating meat. At first I thought I was crazy, then my vision came into focus. On the ground was a dead, ripped-up carcass of a bear. Blood was pooled around its body and its chest had been ripped open. In front of it, sifting through its body, ripping apart parts of the bear to eat, was a little girl with long brown hair and a bloodied-up blue dress. Just like the girl that had went missing all those years ago. But of course, That was impossible. That girl was dead. But sure enough, she looked to be about the same age she would be if she was alive. 12 years old. Sal's nails dug into my arm. I wasn't hallucinating. He saw it too. This was real. It wasn't a nightmare. I wish it had been. I should have turned and run, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed with fear, and my eyes were stuck on her. I couldn't tear them away. My eyes trailed to her hands and followed them as she dug through the bear's chest with her bloody hands. I watched as she dug deeper into the chest and dragged out, with veins still attached, its heart. The heart wasn't beating anymore, of course, although I'm not sure if that makes up for what she did next. I watched as she tore away the veins from the heart and pulled it up to her face. She opened up her mouth and bit down into it. Blood splattered all over her clothes and her face. I wanted to scream, but I was paralyzed. Unfortunately, Sal was not as paralyzed. He let out a large cry of terror, and of course, the girl heard it. She growled as she slowly turned to us. I was suddenly unparalyzed again. I grabbed Sal's hand and ran back where we came from. He was crying from how scared he was. I held on to him as tight as I could as I ran. I saw our campsite in the distance. I thought we were going to be okay. I thought we were going to make it. But then Sal screamed. His hand slipped from mine. I stopped and looked back to see her on his back, ripping up my best friend to shreds. I was sickening to watch the blood pour and his flesh pull apart. I was going to throw my flashlight at it in hopes of saving him, but I'd lost it in the struggle to get out of there. So like a coward, I turned and ran. I left my only friend all alone to die. Everything would have been fine if I had just listened to him, but no. I ran away like a coward as Sal screamed in pain and terror from behind me. My heart sank as the scream started to die down. I assumed the worst, but I kept going. I choked back tears as I ran as fast as I could. I ran and I ran like a coward. I made it back to the trail, and a flicker of hope made me think that I was okay. But that was a mistake. I made the mistake of looking behind me, just for a second. She was right there. She bit into my leg, bringing me down to the ground. I flailed in terror and managed to grab a stick in the struggle. I knocked her off of me and got up, only able to run because of the adrenaline from the fear. Finally, I could see the road. It was right in my grasp. I looked back and saw her pursuing behind me. She was getting dangerously close to my leg again. I looked ahead of me and saw a street lamp. I took a chance and jumped. I landed scraping my knees and arms on the concrete. I scrambled away from the forest with a large stick in hand. The little girl stopped at the edge of the forest, her beady eyes staring at me from the darkness. She tried to step into the light, but shrieked when it got in her eyes. She backed up and ran back into the forest. I took a deep breath and processed what had just happened. My adrenaline died, and I clenched my bloody leg. Tears fell down my face as I thought about Sal. I dragged myself to my feet and limped all the way to the police station. I entered the door with tears streaming down my face as I explained what happened. They went out to look for Sal, and I stayed. Her parents were called. It was all a blur after that. The police told me it was just a wild animal, and I was just in shock. They said it was dark and I could have just scared myself. But I know what I saw. I know it attacked us. I know it killed Sal, and it wasn't an animal. I vowed to myself that I would never go into those woods again. After the funeral, Sal was buried in the outskirts of the town. His parents moved away and never came back, not even to visit their own son's grave. Even now, I head there every day after school. I never really leave anymore. It's my fault he died, so I feel obliged to stay with him, like I didn't do before. Sometimes, if I stay at the right time, I can see that girl at the edge of the forest. The same blue dress and those same beady eyes. I've decided to give her a name that suits what she does, what she's become. The one that killed the only friend that I ever had. The Heart Eater. I'm sorry, Sal. Thank you guys so much for listening to the narration. This is an original story of mine that I wrote about 2 years ago, and I rewrote it again this year because spooky season, and just because I liked the story. It was creepy, and if you were afraid or whatever, then blame my 12-year-old self, not me. Thank you for listening if you even got this far. If you were scared, hit the like button. If you were terrified, subscribe. And if you didn't get scared, then I don't know what you are. But thank you for listening to this. If you feel like it, then subscribe for more. I would like to know if anybody would like to hear more of these stories again, because I have more of them. I have more spooky stories to share with the world. Maybe even in this own little universe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. My Instagram will be in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!